So if you're thinking about getting a career in mortgage services in the UK, then this is the video for you. This is going to be a deep breakdown. We're going to be breaking down 15 steps. Actually, we're going to be doing a start your career as a mortgage broker, step-by-step, complete breakdown, 15 steps. We're going to be looking at understanding the role, the regulatory requirements, the qualifications you need, all the way down to business planning, the entire lot. And truthfully, this is very much a very raw video. We're going to be unpacking this, and it's just a bit of a live kind of slide sharing masterclass for you to get deep into the weeds of this. So I'm very excited to share this with you. If you've got any questions and you want to know about this, please do leave them in the comments on this YouTube video, because I will answer them, happily answer them if you want to know about them. And yeah, that's what we're going to be diving into. Now, before we go any further, let me just do an introduction to myself. My name is Ash Borland. Welcome to my channel. I am a mortgage business coach. I help mortgage brokers effectively simplify their success, level up their business, improve their impact and income using systems, processes, content marketing, the whole lot. I've been doing this for 5 years and helped multiple 6- and 7-figure businesses thrive in this space. Previously to that, I had my own mortgage services business, and having worked also as an employed role as well in corporate and independent and in a financial planning office in the company there. Previously, on top of that, worked in a state agency, worked in land, new homes, and all of those things. So I'm very much, this is sadly my passion. I love it very much. And so that just gives you a bit of a context as to who I am. If you want to learn more about what I do, by the way, feel free to go to ashborland.com, and there'll be more there to unpack how it works. But we're going to be diving into this 15 steps. This is a lot. Here we go. Let's do it. So the first one we have is understanding the role. What does a mortgage broker actually do? Great question. So a mortgage broker, effectively a mortgage broker, mortgage advisor, mortgage consultant, mortgage expert, you hear all these different words and different names, but they are all the same thing. That's really important to understand. They're all exactly the same. And effectively, on paper, what their job is to force you to liaise with a client, so go back and forth with a client and find them a lending product, a loan that suits their needs. That's pretty much what it is. Now, there are 3 types of brokers out there. And by the way, I will refer to them as brokers in this because that's what I like to call them. But everyone just calls them different names depending on what they want to say. For me, I like to call them brokers. But what the 3 types are is you have what is referred to as tied. So there is a tied broker, and a tied broker works with their one product. And normally that can be usually in a bank. So you might have someone who's a mortgage bank advisor, and they only can advise on the products in the bank, which makes complete sense, really, doesn't it? If you think about that, is a very logical thing. So if you're somebody who only works in the bank, then that is referred to as tied. Now, if you can then be what is referred to as multi-tied. Now, multi-tied is quite common in the corporate space for mortgage brokers, which is where you may have what is known as a panel of lenders. And you could work from, say, 10, 15, 20, 30 lenders that you can work with, but you can't go off the panel because that's all you're authorized to work with. And this is very common, as I said, in corporate environment. And then what you have is what is known as, and this is the exact word I think from what I'm understanding, is representative of whole of market. It's not whole of market. We can't call it that because technically you don't have access to the whole of market, because there are lenders who will not work with you and will not work with you as a broker, so they won't deal with it. So that can't be called whole of market. It's known as representative of whole of market. Can also become sometimes called independent, but regulation throws into this. But realistically, that means they work with pretty much everybody who will work with a broker. You're able to work with them, and they are normally the ones you see who are self-employed. They're the main people who are self-employed, are usually representative of whole of market. So that's the kind of what a broker does on paper. Now, what do they actually do? Honestly, their job is massively emotionally led. And I think people often think of this job as, it's numbers and it's number crunching. It's really not. That is part of it, but a big part of it is people. You are managing people's expectations. You're dealing with some of the biggest purchases they'll ever have in their life. It's going to be a big event for these people, and it's very stressful. And so because of that, you are the go-to for that. You are that broker, the go-between. And this can be very hard. And if you're somebody who's highly empathetic, highly emotionally intelligent, this is a great role for you. But people don't see that a lot. It can be long hours. It can be a lot of emotional conversations with people, a lot of stress, but it's incredibly rewarding as well, especially when you really throw your all into it. It's not as black and white as you think in regards to, oh, it's just like doing numbers. It's not. But it can be very lucrative for people if you go down the route and you're good. Now, what does the day-to-day role look like for an advisor? You're going to be speaking to a lot of people. So if you're somebody who doesn't like to speak a lot, you don't want to be in front of people a lot, this probably isn't the job for you. You will be speaking to a lot of people, or you're going to have to speak to them about money. And that's, again, something really important to understand is if you're somebody that's not very comfortable talking about money, and there are people who aren't. And that's why I bring that up, is there are some people who just don't feel comfortable talking about finances. You've got to ask them everything, and have really deep conversations about it. So that's important too. You do also have to have a level of comfort with doing administrative work, because there's a lot of admin. You're a regulated environment. You've got to make sure the admin it's a couple of hours per case. So if you're somebody that shies away from admin, this could potentially not be the right job for you. To give context, by the way, I'm dyslexic and I have ADHD and I can do the job. So there are ways around it. I struggled with admin myself. I'm a lot better at it now. There are ways in doing it, but you do have to do it if that's the type of job. I wanted to do the job that much that I was willing to find coping mechanisms and ways to be able to do it. But you do have to think about that. That is very important. And then the day-to-day in regards to the duties, you're going to have some late nights. You're going to have maybe work weekends. It's an out-of-hours job. It's definitely not a 9-to-5er. And if that's what you want, don't go into this role. I promise you that. You can stop the video here and move to someone else. You are not going to get a 9-to-5 if you want to be really successful as a broker. You might be able to build it later on, but not at the beginning. You've got to work. You've got to put in the hours, put in the time, be available, and then over time you'll build up a reputation. But that's understanding the role and how it works. So let's have a little move on to the educational requirements. So educational requirements wise, from my understanding, I can't remember if there's much. I think you might need 5 GCSEs, but I don't. On top of that, I don't think there's really anything else. And I might even be wrong with that. That might even be just a potential. But there's no educational requirements. You don't need a degree. You don't need to have A levels. And that's what makes this job so unique, is that it is a potential 6-figure earner, and even multiple 6, if not 7, if you're really good and start becoming a business owner without a degree at all. It's mad, the actual potential of it. So if you're somebody who's right now, maybe you're leaving your A levels now because you have to, and you're thinking, what do I do next? And you're thinking, maybe I go as a career as a mortgage broker. You can do that and scrap off all of the university debt. You can do that. It's a really cool thing. It also is great if you're watching this and you're a bit older. Let's say you're maybe in your 30s or 40s or even 50s and thinking, I want a career change, but I don't have any of these qualifications. Again, it doesn't matter. I know many advisors who had careers in the police, had careers in, like I had a career in performing arts, for example, but people who had careers in different things and then completely 180'd into mortgages. So you don't need to have this background of educational requirements, which makes it so great. Now let's talk about the professional qualifications, because this is a completely different kettle of fish. You absolutely do need these. So when it comes to being a broker, you do need qualifications to be a broker. You cannot be a mortgage broker without qualifications. This is important to understand. We are in a regulated environment. We're going to talk about regulation in a little bit. You have to have these qualifications. Now, there are 2 qualifications or 2 types of qualifications that you need to have, okay? The first one is, you don't have to have both of them. You can have one or the other. The first one you have is known as CMAP, which is the most common one. Now, CMAP is broken into 3 exams. The exams, from my understanding, and I myself didn't do CMAP. I did the second one. But I remember, because I literally did a video on this a couple of days ago, but this is my dyslexia and ADHD brain. Financial regulation is CMAP 1. Mortgage advice is CMAP 2. And I think a knowledge of mortgage advice is CMAP 3, or implementation of mortgage advice. Effectively, CMAP 2 and 3 are all about mortgages, and CMAP 1 is all about financial regulation and ethics. That's pretty much what that is. You have to do all those qualifications. You can do them yourself. You can get them funded through training contracts. There's different ways around doing that, but you have to have those to be qualified. The other type of qualification you can have instead of that is done by the CII, which is, I think it's Chartered Insurance Institute. I just know it's CII. because I've said it so many times. And that's where you would get, you can get CF1 and CF6. CF1 is financial services, financial regulation and ethics, same thing. And CF6 is just mortgage everything. So it's effectively CMAP 1 and 2 and 3 combined. That's what I have. So I have the CF1 and CF6. That's what the one I did. They are literally the same thing, and they all lead to the same outcome, which is to be able to actually go and get a job as a broker. You need these qualifications. So that's how you do it. Like I said, you can go and do this yourself and pay for it yourself. There's lots of different courses out there that you can do on your own. I think it's less than about 700 quid if you do all of them together. You can then get the study material. You can go on intensive courses. You can get your employer to fund it or to give you time to study. Or you can even go the route which I went down, which is where you like full blown, you can literally get them to training contract, put you on it. And I did that and with a corporate company. It was really good, but I was tied in for 2 years. This is a common thing. You're tied in for 2 years. So once you've done it, they've put you through all of the CAS status and stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute. You have to stay with the company for 2 years. And some people like that. Some people don't. I didn't have a problem with that. That was absolutely fine with me. I literally left on the dot of 2 years because you can make a lot more money. But that's how you weigh it up. Before we go any further, if you want to download my cheat sheet, which is my 5 tips, my 5 secrets for making it in the mortgage industry, you can get that. The link is in the description now on the YouTube video, and I'll also tag it and pin the comment. So you can download that now if you want to. It's just a PDF download of my 5 tips and secrets that for you to make it successful in the industry. Just give it a go, and then let's get back on with the video. So let's talk about the regulatory requirements. So the mortgage industry is regulated by the FCA, which stands for the Financial Conduct Authority. Now, because it's a regulated industry, that does mean, as I said, admin and all this stuff is very important. And your financial situation, your own personal situation is very important. You need to make sure that you can be approved by the FCA before you are even allowed to give advice. And so they will do background checks on you. Any bad credit, bad financial stuff, this is all going to be stuff that can be reflected in it. So if you're thinking about being a mortgage broker, you've been bankrupt, you've had missed payments, I'm not saying it can't be done, because I do know people who have done it, but it's hard. Okay, it's much harder. And so this is something you need to consider when you're going into this industry, is that you do need to have what is known as the fit and proper status, where you are somebody that is not financially at risk. So you have good financial, and that is because the FCA will check that. Be aware of that. And this can actually, if you go and get a job within the industry, which obviously I'd expect you are if you're watching this, they will want to know everything. When you actually register with the FCA and become approved by them, they will want to know every bit of savings you have, every asset you have, everything. Like, it literally is everything. It's quite scary when you first get it the first time. I've had it many times now, but like when you first get it, it's pretty intimidating. They want to know all your movements in history, where you've been, I think it's the last 6 years, any gaps. They want references from different people, and they will check all of that stuff. So they are, and this is good because you are going into a regulated environment where you are giving financial advice, and you could ruin people's lives if it's done incorrectly. This is one of the things that's wonderful about this job, is that you are becoming you're not a professional person in the eyes of like actual, you have to be an IFA, a financial advisor, to be considered professional, but you are on the ladder of going that way. So it's a lot of responsibility. Was it great power, it becomes great responsibility. You are in that kind of field. So be prepared for that. Now let's talk about experience, because you can't just be let straight loose once you've got your CMAP or CII exams. You aren't just let loose in the industry. You go into what is known as a training period. You are now a trainee advisor, and you have to be supervised by another advisor who has got what is known as CAS status, which stands for Competent Advisor Status. And you need to get Competent Advisor status. And you do that by working under another firm. So this is where you can work in banking and get your CAS through them. You can work in a state agency, corporate-based like scenarios, get your CAS through those. You could work for a financial services independent business, get your CAS through them. And normally your CAS, I can't remember the exact, it's been a long time since I've done CAS, but you have a certain amount of time to be able to do that before you then have to ask for an extension from the FCA. So it's proving that you're competent at the job. Now, CAS does have to also, every time you move a company, you will have to redo your CAS, but it's significantly less once you have been an advisor already. If you haven't, and normally what companies look at is if it's lapsed for a year. So if you've not advised for a year, you will go back to a more stringent kind of, you have to be under the original kind of threshold. So me now, I haven't advised for 5 years. If I wanted to be an advisor now, I would have to go and, obviously I work with advisors every day in, day out, firms every day. I still would have to go through the complete CAS signing off period again, because I have had 5 years out of actually on the tools advising. That is important, which is why, by the way, many principal advisors who run firms will do 1 or 2 mortgages, maybe 1 mortgage every quarter for a year to continue to keep the CAS status, because it's hard to get once you've lost it. It's quite hard to get in general. So you need to understand that, and it's how you get that. So getting the qualification doesn't make you an advisor. It just means you now have the qualification to be considered to be an advisor. But you need to find a way to get that CAS. Some places will take you on without it, but you'll still be supervised by someone else within that kind of arm. So you need to be aware of that. Not spoken about enough with CAS, and I think that can sometimes be a stumbling block for many people. Now let's have a chat about the skills you need to develop as a broker in order to be successful. One of the first skills we're going to have to be looking at is we need customer service. We've got customer service, we've got sales skills, and we've got communication skills. We touched on this earlier at the beginning of the video, but it is really important. If you want to stand out, you want to be successful at this, get very good at delivering good customer service. Your business is built on referrals, and the more you can generate business, the more successful you're going to be as an advisor, both employed and self-employed, and the more desirable you'll be both to clients and also to employers or networks or self-employed like businesses that want to bring you in under their banner. It's a really good skill. So sales skills, communication skills, and customer service, they are massive. In fact, they're probably the number one things that are going to separate you. So if you're now studying to be a broker, which I can imagine you are if you're here watching this video, these are things you can be working on today. You can be working on these things straight away. You can go into be listening to sales books. You can be listening to my podcast, Mortgage Business Mastery. Is that stuff relevant to you? It's on here as well on YouTube, by the way. Is it relevant to you? No, because you're not in the business yet, but it's teaching you the skills and things you would use. So the mistakes or the tips or things like that, because this is what's going to make you better. The qualification itself is not going to teach you how to do the job. The qualification is just going to give you, it's like learning to drive. You don't learn to drive till you pass your test. It's the same thing with this. So leaning into the sales skills, those soft skills, those interpersonal skills, they're the things that matter. Analytical, and one of the stuff here I've put down on my notes is analytical and numerical abilities. So you do need to have a certain level of understanding of basic maths. I'm not a massive mathematical guy. Most advisors I work with aren't either. Some advisors I do work with are absolute wizards at this stuff, and they've built a niche working within that space. But it's not something that's massively needed, but you do need to have a basic understanding of maths. And if you haven't, start developing it, because you need it. You just need it. It's going to be very hard, especially when you've got things like swap rates and different interest rates and understanding how that works. The calculations need to be right. If you get the calculations wrong, you could really mess up somebody's mortgage and mess up their life. It's quite big. The stakes are very high in what you're doing here, especially with it being regulated. It could cause you a lot of problems in the future. So get good at understanding numbers, understanding how that works. And the other one is you need to be IT literate. If you're not good with tech, meaning software, creative software, CRM software, being able to use email, marketing, video, content, all that stuff, you need to learn, because this is a very digital world, and the way you're going to generate leads, stand out, and stay in communication with people is through that. And you're not going to be able to thrive in this industry if you don't have that as like a skill set. Just hands down. In fact, that's how I built my career. I built my career as a coach originally by coaching people on how to be good at that stuff. It then moved into business coaching and everything else from the back of that. But the reality was I thrived because other people in the industry weren't embracing tech. Embrace tech, embrace being at the front of it. That will make you significantly more successful than your competitors and your peers, in this space. Brings me on to number 7, which is networking. So networking is massive in the industry. No, it's two parts for the networking. Let's take it as you want to get a job. If you're trying to get a job right now as a broker, you need to be networking now. You want to be networking on, well, really LinkedIn is the main one. You need to know people in the industry. Me is one of those people. You should be talking to me. You should be on LinkedIn right now or adding me on Instagram at Ash Borland, little plug. And you need to be contacting us and talking to us and being in conversation with us, not begging for a job, not saying, please, can you help me, but actually getting into the conversation. I have people, some of you may even watch this, who know who you are, who are not qualified advisors, going through their CMAP, some of them working in the Marines, some of them working in completely different jobs, teaching, and they message me on Instagram all the time and on LinkedIn all the time, and I communicate with them. And I'm like a high-level coach. I work with people. Most people I can't. There's a long waiting list to work with me, but I'll talk with them because they're giving me they're chatting to me. I'll talk to people if you want to show initiative. I remember their names, and those people are the people who are going to thrive in the industry because they're making themselves known to key players straight away. That's what you want to be doing, because if you need that training contract or you need that position, that's what you want. If you go into it, otherwise you will be forced, and this is true, you will be forced to go down the routes of going to the corporate companies and having to have nowhere near as much work-life balance, nowhere near as much free time and less income potentially, because you didn't have those connections. There are lots of great training contracts out there from independent financial planning firms if you're willing to network. So that's a big one within what you're doing. Secondly, from that, you want to get good at networking, because when you get good at networking, you're going to be able to network with other people to try and generate business for you as well, because networking is part of the job. I won't be talking about that in this specific one because it's more about how you get the job, but you do want to be networking and building relationships with people in the industry, providers, lenders, brokers, BDMs, people like me, coaches, mentors, anything really, any key players. LinkedIn is going to be the place to be. Get on the conversation, start talking to people, comment on their content. Commenting on their content is the best place. DMing them, not so much. Comment on the content, comment for a while, and then send the DMs, hey, how are you? I'd love to chat with you, whatever. People will do stuff. I've had many conversations with people who have jumped in my DMs after commenting 20 times over a month or so, and then we've ended up on a free call, which would cost them hundreds and hundreds of pounds to have with me, and I'm like, yeah, okay, cool, let's have a chat. Tell me what you want to do. So networking is powerful, really powerful. Doesn't mean, by the way, everyone watching this, I'm going to just chat to you. You got to make yourself stand out. Obviously, I'm busy, but like, it happens all the time, and it happens with me and my peers. Definitely worth considering. And number 8 is find a mentor. And you know what? You couldn't get better than me. You're here. No, I am not joking, actually. Being very serious. I don't spend hours making this content for no reason. But realistically, mentors are, all joking aside with that, mentors are massive in this industry. There are some incredible mentors. I think it's Mentors in Mortgages is one that's out there right now, which is like a thing you can get mentored on. There are some fabulous advisors out there and fabulous business owners out there who will mentor you, and you only really become successful by learning from others. Now, I am a mentor. I work with people in that way. There are many other mentors out there in my space similar to what I do. There are also people who do the job who will mentor you. You can find but mostly with mentors, it's finding a good boss who's going to help you through this at the beginning. But you can't do this on your own. You need help and guidance, and having a range of people who you speak to is great. Now, the thing with mentors is you don't have to, like, let's take me, for example, you don't have to work with me one-to-one to be your mentor. You can consume my content. You can engage with me in the comments section on these YouTube videos. You can engage with me on my Instagram. You can engage with me on LinkedIn. There are many of us out there. That is still mentor relationship. I have that with many people. You want to be able to seek guidance from people who've done it before. If you don't, you'll feel very lost and very confused, and you don't need to be, because it's not as difficult. It's not as lonely or as difficult as it needs to be. Don't be a stranger. We all want to help. We won't bite. We're all very friendly people. I say all of us. Some of us aren't. But most will be. And let's talk about setting up your business. And this is if you want to go self-employed. So some people will just want to go straight away self-employed as a broker. And there are a couple of things you need, and some won't. Now let's talk about setting this up as a business. If you're going to go self-employed as a broker, then, and again, I'm not a tax advisor on this, so please take this as this, but you need to decide what your business structure is going to be. So if you're going to go sole trader, if you're going to go limited company, you're going to go partnership, you need to understand what that would be, how that would look, get it sorted and get it done first time round. In regards to as you like being a broker in regards to VAT, the mortgage industry is financial services, and so it's VAT exempt. It's just important to point out. Some people don't realize this. You don't have, as of right now, as of 2024, and making this, and has been for pretty much for as long as I can remember, VAT is not charged, so you don't have to get VAT charged on your business. One thing that's important to point out with that is you also can't claim VAT back. So if you do go self-employed, your fee, anything you purchase, coaching programs, software, everything, you can't claim the VAT back. But then at the same time, you benefit because the VAT is, you don't have to charge it. And so it's a funny one. But that's just something to think about. And it is knowing how you're going to set your business up. Sole trader, limited company, partnership. Get those things in order. I'm not going to go dive too deep into those, but it's just something that is talked about. They talk about it when you're setting the business up. You need to know about this thing. Do what's right for you. There's no right or wrong. You don't have to be limited. I wasn't limited when I first started. You don't have to do that. So as a broker, I wasn't limited when I first went out self-employed. I've been employed and self-employed, so they're all different ones, but you don't have to, but it's all down to what you want to do. Now, number 10, we're going to be talking about building a client base. So building a client base is the lifeblood of you as a broker. Now, you need to develop a way of generating leads. Generating leads is hard. It's one of the hardest things that many mortgage brokers struggle with. In fact, to give some context, so my dad was head of training and compliance for some of the largest corporate companies in our industry. Won't say their names but they were, not to get in trouble, but it's just, so they were. And the problem that my dad would say was people would often go employed, they would have leads handed to them, and then they would come back, they would go self-employed because they are making six figures employed, but not making that because by the time the commission splits and everything came in, and they would go, I'm going to do this on my own. So they'd go on their own. And then a year later, they'd come back. And the reason they come back is because they didn't understand how to generate leads. They didn't understand how to actually go out and hunt for business and get business. And this is something really important to understand is you need to think about, are you developing and honing a skill of generating business? And this is the same if you're employed or self-employed. More so self-employed, but definitely employed as well. Because this is a skill set that makes you self-sufficient. So what do you need to do with this? Well, there are a couple of things you want to do. First of all, you really want to understand how to develop a marketing strategy and brand yourself social media-wise. Social media, content marketing, local advertising. That is really important, massively important, building that client base. You then want to also focus on referral systems, referral structures. Are you staying in contact with people? Have you got a system that is keeping you in touch with them so you're following up with them every 6 months, all the time? You need to build these things in. I'm not going to dive into them too much on this because it's very deep, and that's literally what this entire channel is built around, is this stuff. It's not going to, we'd be here for 5 hours if I dived into all of them, but these are the things you need to be thinking of. You need to think about professional branding, about how you look, how you sound. Now, professional doesn't mean wearing suits and ties. I'm sat here with tattoos and a white t-shirt with a Game Boy behind me. You don't have to be like that. It just needs to be professional in regards to presentable and a consistent brand. You have to be building out something that makes people remember you. And then you need to make sure, as I said, with networking with businesses and people who are going to refer and constantly generate leads. If you cannot build a client base, you will fail in this industry. And if you want, you just will. Fail is a strong word. You won't fail, but you will not hit those higher income levels. Now, when it comes to income levels, what type of income levels people can make? You're looking at 20 to 40,000 a year when you first start out, most likely. But if you're employed, you can go anywhere up to about 50 to 80,000, really quite well. If you're really good at that. If you're in the city, like in London or in the more expensive areas, you could go to 6 figures. But if you go on your own, self-employed, all bets are off and you can start making a really high amount of money. Self-employed, you can start making 150, 250, 350. Like I said, I've got an advisor of mine on his own with an administrator who makes, at the moment, it's about 550,000 a year on his own. And that's with mortgages and insurance and his fees. And that is massive. That's all on his own. But what is the thing that separates him to the vast majority of people? Understands how to get leads significantly. And it's built into his systems. Watching my content, getting deeper into that type of stuff is going to help you. I even have the mortgage marketing blueprint, which is, if you want to learn about how to do, that's literally what that's about. Mortgage marketing blueprint is how you create referrals, marketing, and good customer service within it. That's on here as well. I'll link that at the end of this, to be fair, so you can check that out at the end of this video. But the mortgage marketing blueprint is one of those. But it's really important to be able to build a client bank. If you can't build a client base, you're going to struggle. You just will. And people put this off way too long. Start learning it now if you can, and start doing it. That's one of the biggest mistakes self-employed advisors make, is get fat and lazy on the leads being provided to them and don't learn that skill. I made that mistake, by the way. That was a mistake I made. Don't fall into that trap. Start learning how to do it straight away. When you go self-employed, you'll smash it out the park, because you already know how to do that. So number 11, we're going to talk about continuous professional development, or CPD, the bane of most mortgage brokers' lives. And that is that you need to actually stay up to date with all the industry trends, all the regulation changes. And you do have to, as an advisor, constantly do CPD and log it. You actually have to do it in regards for the regulation. The FCA want you and need you to actually log a certain amount of CPD a year. So this is part of your job. You're going to have to constantly learn, study. If that's something you want to do, this job's great. I love constantly learning and never slowing down, constantly being better. That's why I love this job. But many people I speak to find this the biggest pain in the arse. They can't stand it. So you don't want to, if that's something you're like, oh, I don't want to do that, that could be a bit of a problem. But if you are somebody who loves that, you want to be up to date on this, again, you will be better advisor, you will become better, you will make more money if you embrace this type of stuff. Which brings me to number 12, which is compliance and ethics. Compliance is going to be a big bane of your life for many people, especially when you're first starting out. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, oftentimes, especially if you're somebody who leans more towards the charismatic people person type. You'll make compliance errors. There's so many things you need to be aware of with compliance, and it will take a while to learn it, but that's okay. But you want to make sure that compliance is not seen as a bad thing. In the industry, especially amongst older advisors, not all, but amongst older, and the reason being is a lot of older advisors were in an environment which wasn't actually regulated until the whole kind of many reasons, but one of the reasons being the credit crunch in 2008. And go and watch The Big Short if you haven't. That will give you a big explanation as to what kind of went on in the US, but it happened similar to over here. And compliance is really important. And compliance is not there to catch you out. It is there to make sure you're doing the job correctly. And if you do the job correctly, think of it as training to learn how to do the job correctly. Don't think of it as trying to find ways to catch you out. It's not. It's just trying to teach you how to do the job better. And if you find it that way, you're going to do very well. Ethics, on the other hand, is something that I think separates the good from the bad in this industry, which is there are lots of things that you can do that you may not want to do or should do. And I think what separates great advisors from the rest of the pack is the ones who very much take on that role of being the guide, the trusted mentor to their client, and use ethics to judge the decisions they make. So if there's a lot of money to be made in here, especially when you go into insurance and stuff like that, you can unethically make a lot of money. And that's something you need to weigh up. You need to really make sure that you realize that the power you have over people can be quite big, and you need to have a good moral standing. There are firms and people, actually, when I'm saying this, who come to mind, who I know who are incredibly unethical, and I've watched them over the years, and it never ends well, by the way, never ends well, and they're kicked out of networks and deauthorized and all of this stuff. So it always ends bad. Think Wolf of Wall Street, it can go that way. It does go that way. The specific person I'm thinking of is that situation. You don't want to get caught up in that. So be compliant, be ethical, treat people as you want to be treated. This is not always taught, especially from older sales organizations, but you do want to adhere to that. Treat people as you want to be treated, and you won't go far wrong. Number 13, we have develop a business plan if you're going self-employed. If I'm honest with you, I think I'd develop a business plan even if I wasn't going self-employed. But for this specific one, I would develop a business plan for both. But for self-employed, outline what it is you're trying to do. You should know exactly what you're trying to do with everything you're doing. Your marketing plan, your business plan, everything. You really do want to think about what you want to earn, what you want to do, how you're going to execute it. If you don't have these things mapped out and you're not thinking about them, honestly, you are going to to potentially struggle because you're just going to be at the whims of everything. And that's, again, what I do with people. I help them through that, is help them create plans and understand their businesses. But it's very important to do that. Very important. And I would have the same, by the way, if it's not a business plan, it would be a career plan. So what is it that you're working towards every single day as a broker? If you're employed, towards what are you trying to get? Are you trying to become better at limited company? Are you trying to become better at self-employed? Are you trying to become better at buy-to-let? What's your goal for the next quarter? Build these in. For example, this video I'm doing now, this currently is part of my plan. I have plans for everything. This is a how to become a mortgage broker series that I'm making. This is the main video. And then there are 31 smaller videos that are going to lead to this video to hopefully help you all. And it's a plan. I'm not just making content out of the blue. It's all built around a plan, and it will then lead to the email download, which you can get, which, as I said before, it's the free secret My Top 5 Tips, which will build on top of what we've spoken about here. And then if you sign up for that, you will also, if you want to, get subsequent emails that will come through that will help you, guide you even further. None of these are marketing. None of you are my ideal client at this point, but you might be in 5 years' time. You're not right now, but my goal for this is build a plan to help people get what they need and to be able to thrive in this industry. That is the stuff that you need to be thinking about. It's exactly the same for you. So think about your business. Have you gone that deep? One video, 31 going. See how deep I've gone into this just for this. For something, by the way, that isn't going to generate me any income. I genuinely make no money off of you guys. Like, it doesn't, this is just a way to be able to help you. Think about that. Are you thinking about the planning of your business into that level? That's what will set you apart from everybody else. Which I keep saying a lot, by the way, but that's because the whole idea of this is to learn how to be good. So we're coming into the final stretch, the last two to go. Number 14 we have is client relationship management, also known as CRM. So a CRM system is effectively a way in which you can keep in touch with your clients. You want to get really good at CRMs. I'd say that if you can start off at this, becoming an advisor, dive in and get really good at managing your clients' relationship straight away, especially when you're starting out, because one lead is one lead and one client is one client that they're pretty rare at the beginning. So you want to make sure that you have, you want to make sure you maximize them. CRM systems are ways for you to stay in touch with them and manage them. You can have hot boxes. They're all different ways. Every provider, every place you work is going to have a different version of it. The advice I can give to you with this is wherever you choose to work, whether you're self-employed or employed, corporate, independent, whatever it may be, find out what the CRM system is they're using and use it to the maximum you can, because that's going to help you in the long run. It might not feel great the first year or two, but when those remortgages start to roll in, after 2 years, 3 years, you're going to start to see how this CRM makes you money while you sleep. It really is that good. And that's where, like with mortgage brokers, you start to make most of your money after about 5 years. After these, if you've done it well and you'll start to really compound, because you're getting new business in whilst all these other people who you've stayed in touch with are coming back for another remortgage. So they're charging you, they're getting more business from them. It starts to compound, and that's how you swell your income to these larger amounts, because you have good client relationship management. But if you are just doing a mortgage and it's a revolving door and off they go, which is very common, and why I speak to advisors all the time who don't have that, they've been in the industry 20 years and they still haven't broken 6 figures, for example, which again is fine for the first 5-7 years. That's not a big deal. But if you've been in it for 20 odd years, there's no excuse really, unless you're not charging fees. There's no real excuse, and so you do need to think about that. Okay, so get on top of your CRM when you actually do the job. Obviously, you don't do the job right now. And the last question I want to pose, which is self-employed versus employed. Which one should you do? Which you probably think from watching all of these, you're going to be bouncing around going, which one is the right one for you? Let's talk about the differences. Self-employed is going to give you a lot of freedom, a lot of time. If you are quite often people who are common in self-employed roles are usually mothers who are new mothers who want to be around their kids. That's quite common in this industry. It allows them the flexibility and freedom to be able to take their kids to school or to be able to work around them with newborns and still be able to earn a decent amount of money. In fact, sometimes an incredible amount of money. So that's quite usually a common way in. But the problem with self-employed is that you don't have an income. Usually, and that's why I say, whereas with mothers, what normally happens is a lot of people I've spoken to who I've worked with in the past and stuff is they're on maternity leave and then they're doing it to effectively pass the two over so they don't have to go back. So they can work from home, but they can still have all of that work life they want, work-life balance, but they're in control of it. Self-employed is ultimately usually the end game for many people. It's incredibly rewarding. You are your own boss. You are in control. It's a lot more lucrative. You will make a lot more money. It's a lot more stress, and it's a lot harder at the beginning. Employed, on the other hand, you won't have as much work-life balance. You will be adhering to people. If you're in the corporate side, you will have no work-life balance. If you're in the corporate side, when I first started as an advisor or a broker, I started work at 6. Sorry, 6 is a lie. Started work at 8, so I'd be in there for about 7:30. Or in the office before we started work at 8, and I would leave at 7:30 every day, and that would be 6, then 5. So I'd work every other Saturday, and then I eventually swapped to working 5 days a week, but working every Saturday with a Wednesday off. And it was that. Brutal, absolutely brutal. But it was training, and I wanted to learn the job. And with that came leads and a car allowance and security of a basic income plus guaranteed commissions, as well as commissions and bonuses. Everything was there. So it was a good earner, and you can make good money there. You can earn a good 50 grand a year, 60 grand a year doing that. Like, it's not, and some of my, that's the ballpark they're there, but like some of the people I work with, there are 90,000 a year in those places, but you got to work very hard for that. So it really, for what you want to do, it really weighs to what you're after. I can't tell you no one size fits all. For me, at the time, I wanted to learn on the job. Would I do it the same if I'd done it again? 100%, yeah. I would have gone into an estate agency and done it all again like I did. There's nothing different I would have done. The only thing I would have done differently if I was to do this again is I would have learned how to self-gen and would have thought like a self-employed person whilst I was employed, because that was the big shift. I moved from an employed role into a role which was more of a hybrid role under a financial planning firm, and that was like a dropped into the deep end, and it really was like a whoa. And so that would be my take on that is, if you are going to go employed, but you have a desire to go self-employed in the future, start treating it like you're practicing to be self-employed in the future. Don't rely on the leads. That would be my take. So if you enjoyed this video, if you've got any questions, by the way, first of all, about this and about mortgages and getting a career in mortgage brokering, please leave them in the comments. I will answer those comments when I see them. I will happily do that. If you do want to get in touch with me, at Ash Borland on Instagram is the place to go, or LinkedIn, just search Ash Borland and I'm there. And I'm very receptive to people. I'm very open and talk to people all the time. So I'm happy to do that. If you do want to learn more about how to market your business, what that would look like, you can check out my my flagship free course, which was a paid course, by the way, which then I turned free, and I'll put it up on the screen here, I think, which is the Mortgage Marketing Blueprint. Check that out if you want to. It's a bit early for you now, but it'll give you an idea of what to expect. And then like I said, if you do want to download my 5 tips and 5 things, like my 5 kind of secrets to being successful in the mortgage career, and you would like to then get subsequent emails just giving you tips and tricks around how to push yourself within the career to become a broker, then please do download that lead magnet. Make sure that you have that you check your junk folder. If my emails go to the junk, just move them, just make sure you unjunk them, and then you'll start getting them. So yeah, nothing to sell you. Just, I wish you all the best, and hopefully I'll see some of you in the industry over the years and whatever. It'd be lovely to see you and come up to me and say hello. So yeah, have a great one. I'll see you the next time.